Good morning, folks. We got another one on the bench today. This one here is a very common one I see, probably at least 2 to 3 a week. It's the Troy-Bilt TB200. All the TB series, the Craftsmans, the Cub Cadets, they're all the same because it's under MTD. But this is the one with the plastic carb, and just like all the other stories, ran fine last year and now it won't. So we're going to go ahead here and start tearing into this and show you the real easy way to get this carb out, how to break it down and clean it, get it back up and running. And this is going to be a one-shot deal, no breaks, no editing. So bear with me, and I'm going to set this right here and get ourselves started. It's very minimalistic tools that you need. Again, starting out with my DeWalt impact driver with a 5/16 and also a 7mm. That's the only two that you're going to need. And one extra tool that I like to use that's going to help me in this is my forceps. They always help me with the fuel lines and things of that nature. So you can start by just simply accessing the air box, pulling the air filter out, and start from here. I like to pull the cover because it's super easy. It's only 3 bolts that are the 5/16. Those 3 are done. You can get these screws, don't lose them, and you can just get this recoil cover right out of your way. Now it kind of gives you a full open space to work. 2 of these bolts, one here, if I can get that right, one right here, one right here. Those are 5/16. These are the 7mm, okay? Sometimes you got them hidden under here, the different configurations, but generally it's all the same. 5/16 and 7mm. We're gonna go ahead and take those out. And let's see if I can get my table a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. There's that. One thing that's really cool to know that it helped me when I learned it. I'm going to show you here in just a moment. These 2 5/16 nuts that I pulled out, these bolts, they have fine thread on them. That's for screwing into metal. These that go into plastic will have a coarse thread on them. So if you're not really sure, typically coarse thread goes for plastic and the fine thread goes into metal. All right, so cover plate, the back plate is pulled off. I'll get that out of your way. Here's the carb. Now, first thing I like to do is take my forceps and remove the fuel clamp out of the way. You can do these with some pliers, but having these with a bent, it's just so helpful to get right in there. Like most of the videos I talk about, these fuel lines, don't just go ripping them off. Pinch them and rotate them so it breaks free. And then as you start to work them loose, it's going to leak some gas. So I want to protect the paint finish because gasoline will eat this paint finish up like nobody's business. Just tuck a rag under there. I'm going to pry off this fuel line just a little bit until it starts to come back. There it goes. Now the fuel line's pinched off. I don't have to even worry about it. I'm even going to just pull the fuel tank out of the way. It just pops right up. Comes right off. It has these 2 little sliding tabs that it locks into around this housing. So this can just get out of your way. You don't need to do it. I like to. It just gives me a little more room. Now the carb. Real easy. I always advise when you're new to doing something like this, take some photos. See how your thermostat rod comes over to your choke lever, and then you have your governor rod that comes over to your throttle linkage set up here on the carburetor. Wouldn't be a bad idea to snap a photo of this, so when you go to put it back in, if you're not sure how it's supposed to go, that's how it should look. But I already know. I do these all the time. Let me see if I can angle this up a little better where you guys can see what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm so bad at these videos. I need to get better. This camera just doesn't want to work for me. All right, you guys are going back on the bench. Can't help that. don't know how y'all do these videos with that camera like right here all the time. All right, so the carb itself will slide and pop right out. Now it's disconnected from the engine. I'm gonna go ahead here and block the fuel inlet tube so I don't spill gas all over the place. But the first thing I do is I rotate it towards the engine, and yes, it will put a little bit of pressure on these levers here, but if you're gentle, first one's out, second one's out, now your carb's out. This is important to know also. There's an O-ring behind this white circle clip right in here. A lot of times it'll get stuck back here, right there on this tube. So pay attention to that. You just want to make sure that it's not stuck on there. The O-ring goes in first, and then the white retaining clip snaps in place to hold the O-ring in. So now that the carb is out, I don't have to worry about this mower. We're going to go ahead here and get set up to tear this down, if my camera will work for me. All right, I'm going to get another rag. All right, so same 7mm nut that took off the last 2 screws is what you're going to use to take this bowl off. Right there, right there. Now it's also important to note the orientation. See this little divot right here? This is always going to be facing in closest to the outward gasket, the red gasket here. You can put it on both ways, but it will bind up and not allow the carb to work right. So one of the other things I like to use, which I should have had here, is a flathead screwdriver. Let me grab that. A thinner one is better, which of course I can't find at the moment. But the reason why you want a flathead screwdriver is because you need to pry the bowl off. I start and push against the fuel pipe, the inlet, to break it apart. There it is. Now this is where you get to inspect what's inside the carb because the bowl is still full. I know I can drain it ahead of time, but I want to see what's coming out. I pour it right on my rag. Not too bad. It smells pretty gnarly. It's pretty gross. But here is the nuts and bolts of this carb. We're going to start by taking this pin and prying this pin out. There's one on, now it needs to be centered so you can pry it from both sides. So I'm going to push that back down, push the pin over. So now pop it out that side, pop it out that side. There you go. Your pin is out, your float is out, and here's your needle. Typically the needle will stay in the float just like that. This is the most important piece. This is why the carburetor gets stopped up. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to get it cleaned out. I take a good pair of pliers. It doesn't take a lot of force. You don't want to damage this. This is all plastic. I pinch right on here, put a little pressure, and I'm going to pull this out. Boom. Ooh, now that's gross. That's orange. So that tells me there's been a lot of water, which also tells me this customer uses regular pump gas, the ethanol gas. This thing is all stained yellow, should be bright white. But here's the fun part. This is where the magic happens. This separates into 2 different pieces as well. From the center stem, you're going to gently put a little bit of pressure on this, just enough to grip it, not to crush it or bend it. And pull that apart. And this is the reason why your carburetor will not work and the mower doesn't run. There are 3 holes that go all the way through this tube, and this top one always gets blocked. So we're going to clean that out, spray it out, put it right back together. And I'm going to grab some other carb tools, which again I should have had ready, but I'm horrible at these videos. So let's get some carb tools. All right. One of these days, I'm going to get better at these videos, I swear, because I really want to put some of this information out there. I definitely do. I do this for a living, but if I can help prevent clients needlessly spending money to get these things fixed, I would be happy. I'd rather just do the seasonal maintenances and keep things up and going. So we're going to start with this one today. This jet, it's all kind of nasty and clogged up. I'm going to spray it down first. And again, I'm just using some starting fluid. This particular brand, which I don't want to name just because of whatever YouTube doesn't like, you know. This starting fluid seems to be really good. It does better than the Carb cleaner. You know, I'm going to blow in every one of these orifices. Just a little bit there, a little bit there. Now, you also have a brass jet right here, which needs to be cleaned out. I can see that this one is almost blocked, but it's not horrible. I'm going to use my trusty wire tine from my brush. Clean that off. Yeah, goes right through, no problem. But these holes right here, I don't know if you're going to be able to see them, but there's, where'd it go? You got one there, you got one there, and one up top. Yeah, that had some gunk on it. That took a little bit of, that was a little bit of resistance getting through. And literally, I kid you not, this is the only thing that keeps these mowers from starting up at the beginning of the season. And when the gas sits in it over the winter months. And as you can see, it didn't take a whole lot of tools or anything. All right, that's cleaned out. Now you have the top piece. This is yellow. Gross. And you know it's bad fuel. When you tear it apart, it stinks. All right, this has a brass jet on it as well, and that has to be cleaned out. This looks nice and clear. I'm just going to go ahead and ream it out anyways, just to be on the safe side. I don't want to do this twice. Yep. It's got a little bit of gunk in there. Now, the jet itself, nice and clean now. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but now there's clearly 3 holes you can see all the way through. I need to hold this up some. I can't get that third hole to show. But either way, it's there, and now it's nice and clean. And this, I don't need to dig around in this too much at all. I like to just spray it out, put a little starting fluid in there, go into the front, clean all of it, just blast some of that out. And there's one more back here. And just to blast it out. I'll use a little air just to blow it out. And here's the thing, if you have an air compressor and you start blowing in these holes, be very careful. You will blow that Welsh plug right out, and that's just super important. So be gentle with the air if you're going to use it. Okay. There's no debris. Typically with these plastic carbs, they're a lot better because the ethanol fuel doesn't cake up and bind to the plastic. That's why they're great to have. They are more problematic and they're very easily blocked up in comparison to some of the metal carbs, but all right, we're also going to rinse out this bowl just to make sure there's no other debris in there. I'm going to get my rag, wipe it out. Okay, so reinstallation. This is the part that's important. Okay, none of this takes a whole lot of force. This has to go a very certain way. If you look here, you'll see this has a flat little spade looking spot that rests right on here. You're going to take this, seat it down, and snap it in place. And that's how it should look. Okay. Now, which direction do you put this in? This jet that's on the side here should always be facing out towards the gasket. And boom, snap back in. That's done. Your jet, your needle, set that right back down in. Put your pin in. Now that your pin is centered, get this up closer. Now that that's centered right there, you're going to snap it in place. There it is. Now your float is back in. This is back in. The only other part that's super important to know, again, that divot, it has to clear this. So that's how you know that goes down inside there. So I'm going to orient it where this bubbled out part is facing the gasket. Line this up. Line up your screw holes. You can see this, you'll be able to see right through these. You're going to line that up and squish that right back in. Now you're done. We're going to put this back together. I'm going to use the other 7mm here. Done. So let's go back to the drawing board of reassembly. At times, I like to go ahead and drain the fuel tank out and put all new fresh gas in, but the client has already flushed it and put new fresh gas in, so I'm not going to do that today. Let's get you turned back up over here. The reinstallation. Gasket always facing out. Just exact opposite of what we did. We're going to take the main governor rod, put that through the linkage in the back. We're going to go ahead and start to set the carb closer. We're going to angle it and put this thermostat slash auto choke rod back in and drop the carb back in its place. Shouldn't take a lot of force. Now that it's lined up and set on, just push it back with your thumb, or your thumb's there. Now we're ready for the fuel tank. Line these tabs up just right because they like to go in crooked sometimes. Perfect. That's back in. We're going to put our fuel line back on. This sometimes can be a bear because it's a short line. It doesn't give you a lot of room, but with a little force, boom, fuel line's back on. I always keep the rag there just in case it decides to leak for whatever reason. It'll catch it on the rag, not destroy the paint or the finish of these mowers. All right, fuel clamp is back in. Now we're ready to reassemble. A lot of times, this will be all gunked up and covered with a lot of debris. You want to blow all that off, clean that off. But the breather tube, don't forget the breather tube. That's primarily the reason why I take the cover off, is because the cover will get in your way from getting that breather tube in. And I'm going to show you just a second here. I don't know. Alright, so that's lined up on the pegs. Let me show you this breather tube. That breather tube connects on right here. And it's a nightmare to do when you have the cover on and the fuel tank in the way. So we're going to push that back. That's in. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead here with putting the screws back in. I wonder if I can set you there. Yeah. Yeah, that might work. Again, I'm horrible at these videos, so don't give me too much grief. Camera's probably going to fall over. I'm going to start with the carburetor screws, which are the 7mm, the ones that go into the plastic. Not a whole lot of pressure. It doesn't need to be sent all the way through real hard. That's there. Time to get rid of the 7mm. Go back to the 5/16. Your two metal screws that go into the bracket of the carb. Sometimes you have to realign them because they don't line right back up. Nice and easy. And that one didn't want to, so we're going to go over here. Alright, so that one's there. I'm just going to have a little trouble realigning. That little bracket can be a thing. So, I'm going to probably loosen up the carb screw. They always tell you don't tighten all the nuts until you get them all in, and I never do that. There we go. All right. Just a little manipulation. That metal bracket is weak and it bends out of the way real easy like. Let's get you back over here for the final reinstall here. All right, that's back on, that's back on. We're gonna go ahead and do your cover. When you reset this in, sometimes it doesn't want to sit all the way flush. Take your pull cord, give it a yank, and that'll drop it right down inside the cup of the flywheel. Back to the covered bolts here with the 5/16. Here goes my attachment. Got one. Nice and easy. Nice and easy. Nice and easy. All right. For this install, customer's filter is not bad. Not a lot of debris, a little bit of discoloration from old fuel, but it's really not bad. So put that back in, put that back on. Now during this time, the carburetor bowl has already filled up, so we don't need to wait any length of time. I already checked the oil and spark plug, so as long as you make sure the oil is right, good fresh gas, should fire right up. All right, first pull. Try it again. There it is, guys. Anyways, this covers a lot of models. It really does. This will cover your Troy-Bilt series. This will cover the Craftsman's. This will cover any of these that have that style airbox on there. And yeah, any questions, any comments, let me know. I promise I'm going to get better at these videos. I don't know what type of setup I'm really going to need to start doing these better, but either way, hope you enjoyed, and now I get to call the customer, tell her mower's done. She didn't need any other services done at this time, so she dropped this off in my shop about 45 minutes ago, and it's already done. So thanks again, guys. Have a great day.